Hey, everybody, we are talking NBA draft. We are talking about your favorite team. And yeah, we're talking about the Sacramento Kings. As with the 13th pick, they take Devin Carter, point guard out of Providence. There is a wide range of opinion on this. I always caution fans, remember that it is June. It is not October. And the way the roster looks today will not be the way it looks when the season begins in October. So always keep that in mind. Ryan, give me your initial thoughts.
Grant, it's a Mike Brown type of guy. He's built well. He's a defensive-minded guy. He's great at the hoop, improving from beyond the arc, can run through screens, very tough, comes from a background, Anthony Carter, NBA player as well, his father. So digesting it, that part of it, but also the backlog at the guard position. But as you said, the roster can change.
Well, it will change. I mean, obviously, it's going to change. You can't have a roster full of guards, and that's what the Kings are right now. So
Very
clearly,
full.
yeah, I mean, there will be changes. There will be trades. There will be other movements. So listen, if Devin Carter is better than what you already have, then I'm fine with it. I always say, I did a podcast on this that was released yesterday. You take best player available. The Kings should have learned their lesson back in 1985 when they took Joe Klein instead of Karl Malone, okay? And they took Thomas Robinson instead of Damian Lillard because of need. I can go on and on and on and on about this, okay? Take best player available because the key to having a good basketball team is having good players. Listen, the Kings took Tyrese Halliburton when they had De'Aaron Fox, and so maybe it didn't work out with Fox, but guess what? Now they have Sabonis and Fox.
Exactly right. And, there's a lot of time in between now and then. We're going to get to see Carter in Summer League. You'll see him at the California Classic. You'll get a little flavor for what he can do. And in some ways, Grant, it reminds me of a little bit of a Keon Ellis style of two guard. It's a guy that can play defense. He's long, 6'8", 6'9", had great measurables. So it kind of gives you a little more insight to maybe Mike Brown getting a little more pull behind the scenes with what he wants to do with this roster.
Maybe, again, this is step one of what's going to be many steps. Well, I should say it's step two. Step one was Malik Monk. This is step two. And now you have to get through this period of time, which is going to be free agency. Kings don't have a lot of money. We'll see what they're able to do. There wasn't the type of movement that I thought there would be in this first round. I'm talking about trades. Obviously, yesterday we talked about the big deal with the Knicks and the Nets, but nothing as of yet has really materialized, which has made you raise your eyebrows, or at least from where I sit.
Sure, and it's not for a lack of trying. There's been plenty of reports about the Kings trying very hard for Kuzma and Cam Johnson tonight of the Nets. Also, Memphis tried very hard to move up to get the guy we talked about, Donovan Clingan. They go Edey instead. They needed the big man. But Brogdon, Grant, surprised by that. Portland dumps that salary.
Yep. Yeah, I am. And, Zach Edey, we talked about him yesterday when you said, I thought the Kings would have to move up. You thought he'd be between 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So with that said, you're a little surprised that the big man from Purdue went in the top 10, aren't you?
I am a little surprised. I thought Memphis was very high on Clingan as advertised. I didn't think that they would pull on that type of center. But look, imagine getting through a screen with Zach Edey when John Morant's coming around and some of the guards they have. And it's Western Conference basketball. People are starting to go big again, Napes.
All right, let's pass out the link, Ryno. We want to get interaction. You can call the show. You've got the QR code. Ryno's going to put the link up there for you, so you can call the show, or you can hit us up via the chat message, and we will do it. Hey, here's the bottom line. I've been saying this now for, I guess, since 1994 when I started doing radio in Sacramento. You cannot evaluate a draft pick on draft night, okay? Yeah. It takes 3 years, and sometimes it takes a week. I always share the story of Thomas Robinson. When I got to Summer League, a day or two after Summer League began, and I went on to the court, and I walk up to Bobby Jackson, and I go, "How's Thomas Robinson look?" And Bobby says, "He can't play." I go, "What, he's hurt?" He goes, "No, he can't play." I go, "What do you mean he can't play?" He goes, "I'm telling you, dude, the guy can't play." I'm like, "What do you mean he can't play?" He goes, Not going to work. This was 2 days in the summer league. Bobby Jackson was telling me that. So
And
there are exceptions to the rule, you know?
Sure. And I find that interesting because you could have on a staff a guy that says that's not going to work. And then you can have a guy that says that is our guy as well. So, and that's one thing I will say about this draft, Napes, is everybody was on their toes. You didn't know what teams were going to do outside of those top four, which made it a little bit exciting.
Okay, so here's a couple of things about the pick of Devin Carter. Monty McNair has shown that he's very astute at drafting. Can we agree on that?
Agreed.
Okay. So he's the one that made the decision, not Mike Brown. Now, Mike Brown had a say, but I mean, obviously, Monty McNair is the general manager. And Vivek has a lot to say with this too, but Vivek wouldn't have been involved with this. He wouldn't know Devin Carter from Santa Claus. The reality is that Monty McNair made this pick. Monty's history with the Kings in drafting has been very good. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Listen, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that there are going to have to be many moves, and there are guards. I've said this now for a while. I don't think Kevin Huerter is going to be on the roster. I think he'll be moved. I think there are some other guards that are currently on the roster. You must ask yourself now, what does this mean for Davion Mitchell?
It's a great question. As not what does Jerry Reynolds say? Everybody can't play. This is not kids' sports or something along those lines. Davion's going to have a challenge, and it's going to be a challenge also for Devin Carter. Look, those two guys are grinders. They're going to have to make each other better, but competition, Grant, is not necessarily a bad thing at a position.
Well, again, let's see how this all works. I think that based on all the comments that I'm seeing coming across my timeline and on social media, it's clearly mixed at the moment.
Yes, that would be the same reaction that I'm seeing as well. And I think the reaction because of the balance, what you said to start the show, that's the immediate thing. Another guard. You think back to Davion Mitchell, but you bring up Tyrese, which is a great example. So let the chips fall. The Kings still have picks in this draft to make.
And I would also wager that the vast majority of people that weigh in on social media don't know anything about Devin Carter, couldn't tell you anything about where he went to school. I bet you they didn't watch him play 1 second. They only look at, gee, oh, he's a guard, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality of the situation. So this stuff has never bothered me. There are players that are taken that you don't listen. Isaiah Thomas was taken 60th in the draft, and he ended up being an all-star, not in Sacramento. But the point is, you have to wait and see how the players play. And I don't care what position he plays. If he can play, then you can find a spot for him, and you can make other moves. I've always looked at it that way.
Yep, absolutely. And consistency is one of those things that you look for. And he hits a lot of those boxes of a Monty McNair guy as well. 3 years in college, kind of like some of the other picks Monty has brought in. So
he's 22 years old.
22. He's played in a tough conference. He's built well. So we will see. We will see. Give us a call. We would love to hear from you tonight. In fact, let's start it off with Jay. Welcome in tonight, Jay.
How you doing? I think my Wi-Fi or something was tripping out earlier, so I, got kicked out.
No problem, buddy.
I'm glad that you brought that up, that the roster isn't going to look the same and as in October. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I'm excited or happy about this pick. In fact, I'm really not. And I kind of go on a tangent about that. We clearly have 5 point guards now, I believe, or 5 people capable of playing the point guard, not including Huerter. And when you throw Huerter into the mix, then you could call it 6 if you want to just call it guards in general. So obviously that means that, like you said, and I agree 100%. The first thing that comes to my mind is Kevin Huerter, and I believe it's probably going to be a Davion Mitchell are going to be not on this roster if you're going to get a guard that can essentially do what Davion Mitchell does and can shoot like Kevin Huerter. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So
I wouldn't go that far about shooting like Kevin Huerter.
Oh, well, Kevin, as far as last season, I mean, he didn't shoot that well.
He did not last season.
But I mean, you got a young guy who's 22 who can hit, I think it was around 37% from the 3, does have that long wingspan, as you mentioned. And that's going to help, especially on the perimeter defensively for sure.
Let me ask
So
both you guys a question. Had the Kings at 13 taken Dalton Knecht, what would have you had said about that out of Tennessee?
you can go first, Ryno.
Huh?
I would have been very in favor of that pick for many reasons. The Kings need another guy that can create his own shot, that can score the basketball independent of a teammate, and he brings that. He also has played JUCO basketball. He has worked his way up to Tennessee from Northern Colorado, and I think he's a grinder and well polished. Jay?
All right, so let me ask you this. Would that give you any reason to pause and go, wow, the Kings may be working out a deal to get Kyle Kuzma?
I think in depth or in total, I think we were trying to get Kyle Kuzma, but the something with the 14th pick that kind of threw those plans out the window. They the Wizards traded with
Portland.
So there, I mean, if
I
Portland,
know. I was just saying,
yeah.
though, I mean, do you think that could have been part of the thinking? Because when the draft was going on, I really thought that's the direction the Kings were going to go in. I thought that was going to be the guy they were going to take because he was falling in the draft a little bit.
Dalton, yeah, he fell all the way to
Oh,
the
yeah.
Lakers, which was a
That's what I mean.
perfect landing spot for him. That
Yeah.
was the exact player as a rookie that they needed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They really did need that shooting. 100%. He's a great shooter, but me personally, I still wouldn't have been a fan of that pick. And particularly, I would have been looking for someone who has the length, like a 3 or a 4 guard. I believe Tristan De Silva went after the 13th pick. That is someone
did.
that I would have rather have had on this squad because, like you said, it's not you. Sometimes you have to go best player available, but I do think he was one of the best available at his position. And
He went 18. De Silva went right after Knecht. He went
To
18.
Orlando.
yeah, see,
Yeah.
that would have been, I think, fairly decent because then you can easily slot him in at the 2 or the 3 right off the bat. And he has that experience and he's Monty McNair certified, I guess you could say, because of the 3 or 4 years he's played in college. My thing is I'm a Jared McCain fan. I grew up playing basketball with his brother and saw him at a few Hardwood Palace tournaments back in the day. So I'm thinking in my head, why on earth would you not pick Jared McCain if you're going to pick a guard anyway, when they're both the same height? And the upside with Jared McCain, knowing he's shooting 40% from the 3 and have had multiple 30-point games at a much bigger school than Providence, Duke, which is one of the most greatest coveted NCAA basketball teams of history, as an 18-year-old kid.
Well,
Now that's just my thinking.
That's
And
it
I'm
right
glad
there.
I know you can see my side, but I know
I see your side,
Yeah.
but I also, this is where I give the benefit of the doubt to Monty and his drafting of players. And you said 18, right?
Yeah.
I don't want an
younger.
18-year-old on the Kings roster or a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old unless they are lights out exceptional. It's too young. This team does not have time to wait on a teenager to develop into an NBA player,
Exactly.
both physically, mentally, and everything else. I don't want it. I'm staying away
I
from
totally
that.
get that part too. You want someone who is closer to, like Keegan Murray came and had a great rookie season and
Yep.
a pretty good sophomore season because he has that experience. And I totally
I've been
understand that too.
Jay, I hate to stereotype, but I've done it for a long time. And the vast majority of, and I'm going to call them teenagers because you're a teenager until you turn 20. The vast majority of teenagers that have walked into the Sacramento Kings locker room have no business being there. They're not ready. They're not in any way, shape, or form. They're not knowledgeable about being NBA professional. A lot of them have a sense of entitlement. They don't understand about work ethic at the NBA level. They have no clue about playing 4 games in a week. Not that a 22-year-old would have any clue about playing 4 games in a week, but the point is, so many guys, Jay,
There's a
are just
drastic,
not ready,
there's
and
a
you
big
have to
gap from
wait on
18.
them. And you have to wait on them, and you have to wait on them. The Sacramento Kings right now are not in a position to wait on a rookie. They're just not.
No, and I completely understand that. And it's, I mean, that's just up to general management because there was Dalton Knecht, for example, who had fell to 17. There was a reporter, and he was calling front offices asking, why is this guy dropping? I thought he would be in the top 10 for sure. And there you go. It's the age. So I totally get where you're coming from, Grant. And you're right. The Kings really don't need an 18, 19-year-old kid because even though 22 doesn't sound much older, I can guarantee you I'm 23, and my mindset from 22 from when I was 18 is two different mindsets for sure, even though it sounds not that far from. And like you said, these kids are probably walking into a whole bunch of money for the first time in their life. So they're, oh, I'm rich, I'm this, their ego blows up. They think they're hot stuff because, from their local city, grew up, they were the guy back in the town or whatever you call it. And then now you're faced with those guys from who were also those guys back in their town too, who are also 28, 29, 30-year-old Draymond Green strength type of men.
Well,
and you have no muscle on your body. You're going to get
hang on, Ryno.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. Your body is still changing. How many of these guys did you see tonight during the draft?
All the 18-year-olds look like some hungry kids in Africa. No disrespect, but they were all frail and skinny.
One of the guys they were talking about shot up almost a foot between high school and junior college. And that's the same age we're talking about, Grant, when you're an 18, 19-year-old coming to the league.
Exactly. Again, I'm just going to go back and my opinion is from a different perspective than yours. And it has nothing to do with I know what I'm talking about and you don't. That's not what I'm trying to say.
No, of course
I've been in draft rooms. I've been in training camps. I've been around a lot of young players. And I've made a lot of mistakes on players that came out of college that I thought were going to be really good, Marvin Bagley being one of them. And I've been right on a lot of others where a lot of people were down on them. And what no one really knows, Isaiah Thomas is a great example at 60th, Jimmer Fredette at 10. You never really know how a player, is going to respond when they take the biggest step of their life from college to the NBA, because there are a lot of variables that go into being a successful NBA player. And up here is as important as anything else. And I really believe this, and I'm going to keep saying this. Unless you're talking about a LeBron James or a Tim Duncan or someone of that magnitude, you need 3 years to wait and see how a player is going to be. And I'll use Davion Mitchell as an example.
Yep, great point.
Did Davion not blossom in the last 2 months of last season after being wildly inconsistent with his offensive game? Did we not finally maybe see a glimpse of a guy that it just took time and seemingly found what we were all waiting for, and that's a more consistent offensive player who could be a threat from three?
Yes, exactly right. I do want to ask you a question because you've been around the league so long. Do you give any separation or an advantage to a player like Devin Carter, whose father also played in the NBA?
Yeah, I think that had a big,
and I know his father.
Yeah, I think that had a huge impact. Yeah, off of.
I know his father. His father was actually on the Kings coaching staff for a year. I know Anthony, and yes, I mean he has a complete basketball pedigree from a very young age. Yes, I do factor into that. I absolutely do.
I will say that definitely makes me feel like it gives you that somewhat of a security blanket, knowing that, okay, he's 22 years old. His father was around these players as an assistant coach. He's going to have the ability to adapt quick when it comes to meshing with other coaches, because when he's at home, his dad's probably coaching him how to do freaking chores. Like, you know what I mean?
You know what? You're amen. All right, so here we go. What grade would you all give this Kings pick? I don't give grades on draft night. I give grades 3 years after the draft. So if you want me to grade the draft from 2021, I'll be happy to do so. And I think my grades will be spot on. Right now, you can grade whatever you want. Nobody knows. So you're guessing.
Do you think, going off of what you said, and it has complete validation to it, and I understand 100%, especially with the Kings' philosophy of drafting picks, do you think this year, for instance, there was 4 or 5 Frenchmen that have never played college basketball in their life that went very early in the draft? Do you think that playing overseas directly with those grown men and pretty much professional basketball and kind of skipping college, do you think that is attractive to other franchises in the NBA? And do you think it helps improve quicker these players by bypassing the college system and going straight to the pros. Like some of these kids were 16 years old and they just entered the draft when they, are 19 now, but they
They're
had
coming
3
from
years of
professional basketball.
professional
They're more
experience.
fundamentally sound. Most of them, I don't want to stereotype, most of them are better shooters. Okay.
Right.
And they have went through the rigors of playing professionally at a young age. And yes, I think and again, I don't want to make it sound uniform for everyone, but they're more ready to play in the league than a lot of our young college players.
Let me add on to that. 2 of the top 11 picks played for the G League Ignite this year, who went 2-32 in the G League. So think about that. It's more about getting used to the pro game, the NBA 3 ball, getting used to
totally
travel. There is
that.
a benefit to that.
Yeah, if I totally forgot about that. Like if you're counting just in general professional basketball, I guess you can call it.
Yeah.
And not college, you have the first 2 picks plus 2 picks in the G League Ignite and maybe I think overtime elite or whatever that is, and then you had like 2 more before 20 from France, which is kind of crazy to think. So pretty much half of the draft in the top 20 had professional experience already.
Hey, Jay, we're going to get to some other calls. We really
sure.
appreciate you being our leadoff man tonight, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
That a boy, Jay. Got the internet fixed. He hit a double. He got us off right, Napes.
Yeah, a stand-up double.
Stand-up double.
You didn't even have to slide.
Yeah, keep the pants clean. Love it. Love it. Love it. We move along. If you want to call the show, the link is in the chat. We will put it right back in there for you. Let's bring on Condog. Welcome on tonight, bud.
Welcome, Ryno. Welcome, Grant. Welcome, King's Court. So I think this was a pretty solid pick. This was not, one of those drafts with generational talent, can't miss guys. It was just, more of a run-of-the-mill, maybe, get some roster pieces that you need to fill out your roster with, get some good depth kind of draft. And I think we did a good job there with the guard position. Hopefully, Fox can be able to get some of those rest minutes in, during, maybe start of the second quarter and maybe like middle of the third to the start of the fourth. And that's just, what we need, because there were points with this offense, they just struggled a little bit, when Kevin Huerter was out, Malik Monk was out, and it was mainly just Fox and, Davion. He didn't hit his stride offensively until post All-Star break, and Keon Ellis was good for defensively, but he's still finding his way offensively in this league. And I just think it's good to add a little extra depth at the guard spot, because it is a guard-driven league these days. Regardless, it's just how the game's played these days. It's fast-paced, it's up and down, and the faster you play, the more chaotic you are. It's going to lead to more of those ankle sprain type of injuries and stuff, because you're moving so fast. And that's just you gotta have depth at a position like that.
I agree with you, but you also can only play 5 guys at once, and you don't put 5 guards on the court, and you have a big time logjam right now. And that's why with 100% certainty we can say there are going to be some moves made in the next coming weeks.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't think we are done. I don't think Monty McNair is done. I don't think Vivek Ranadive is done, because we ran this roster 2 years in a row, and we got a first round playoff series that went to Game 7, and we got a play-in that. So that's probably where they're thinking, okay, this roster can get us to maybe first round play-in. That's about the area where this current Kings is. So we really need to improve if we're going to stay in this Western Conference. Especially considering now that the Thunder improved even more by getting Caruso in that Giddey trade, and we'll see what the rest of the West has stored up too.
So it's funny that we're talking about offense. If I'm going to put my rosy colored glasses on and look at this pick on the surface, one, I look at how the game was played the second half of the season, just the way the refs called it, the way the Kings played. The second thing I'm looking at is anytime we play a Luka, a Jalen Brunson, a Ja Morant, a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, we always say, who can guard him? We don't have the right guy. Now with Devin Carter, I'm not saying he's the right guy, but he has the measurables. He has the strength. He has the length. And that is a dimension that the Kings did not have. And that's a huge problem for them. So that is a positive that we can look at, because defensively, that's the only thing I'm looking at right now with this pick. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. Again, Devin Carter, he comes from an NBA family. So, I don't think it's going to overly get in his head, some of these kids that are creating generational wealth for the first time for their families and stuff, where, everything's put on their back and they have all these random uncles hitting them up and stuff like, hey man, remember me, all that stuff. That goes around, when with the NBA and NFL, where, they got a bunch of family members just trying to mooch off of them, and they're famous and they're playing the game and they're still very young, and, you're young, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. That's just life in general. Regardless of whatever profession you've gone into or wherever you live in the world, you're going to, make those dumb mistakes, because, you're finally allowed to make a lot of choices on your own, and you just, sometimes you throw caution to the wind.
Hey, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you joining the show. Thank you. All right, before we get to some other calls, I want to tell you about New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you, and they're available around the clock 24/7. Just go to sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing, and they're available 24/7. sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. And we're also brought to you in part by Bennett's, Sacramento, Roseville, and Rockland. Prime seafood and steak. Don't forget about their happy hour 2 to 6. Sips and taste. Great prices on wines. They have share plates. You're going to love it. Don't forget to check out their locations, as I mentioned, in 3 locales, Sacramento, Roseville, and Rockland. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com to make a reservation. Prime seafood and steaks at Bennett's.
Don't forget, it's still brunch season. Get out there. 2 entrees, bottle of champagne, $44.
There you go.
Calling your name. We bring in a fellow SDSU alum. What's up, Jason?
Hey, good evening. Good evening. Appreciate another good show by you two. Excellent
Thank you.
job as
Thank you.
always. I officiated collegiate sports for 27 years, many different sports. And there's one thing you can tell about really good players that have parents that are coaches or involved, is they understand the game in such a different way. And once the pick came in, I spent the next 15, 20 minutes just watching clips of him and what other people were saying about him. Besides the 40-inch vert, which you cannot teach. That's ridiculous. 40 inches vert. He averaged 2 steals, I think, either just under 2 steals or just over 2 steals a game. He is like a player, and I was talking to a fellow Aztec that played in the NFL, I think, for 13 years. And he played on the defensive side of the ball. And we were talking, and my son is going to be playing at Folsom, hopefully, as a defensive back, which I don't know anything about. But I remember in the locker room, just the back and forth between defensive guys and offensive guys. And to me, what I saw in him is he has this desire to be a defensive player. You have to have the desire. And I think he's talented offensively because of his dad and grooming him and understanding the game, spacing, etc. But to me, this is an outstanding pick, just on the terms of his mentality. When you play sports, and maybe not so much basketball, but at least from football, the defensive players they're built different. And there's just this attitude, and you can see it as an official as well. You can just tell when people are locked in, they are locked in. And it's just a different mentality with defensive-minded players. I think that's what we
He's
have
an
in this
excellent
guy.
rebounder, too. For a
Excellent
guard, he
Yes.
really is a very good rebounder.
Yeah.
We need to add that in.
Well done,
I
Mitch.
think, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think of this. Malik Monk is a dog too. He is aggressive. He just doesn't back down. And I saw that as well as the guy from this. I can't remember his name, from the Kings, Stockton Kings. He got pulled up. The
Keon
two-way
Ellis.
player. Yeah, Keon Ellis. I mean, you have three players that, in my opinion, is exactly what Mike Brown wants. He wants guys that are going to play defensive first. And I
Yep.
mean, if you can imagine in the fourth quarter games, you have, you have two players that, like, if Fox just went to the rack, I mean, he's unstoppable. Let's just face it, he is. Doesn't make always the best decisions, but he is really unstoppable. And then you have, let's say you have a 3 guard lineup, and then you have two other guards, or a 2 and a small 3. And with Keegan, I mean, they're defensive minded. I mean, think about that, locking down. And look at what Dallas, how far they went. They went with Kyrie and Luca, and I remember some of the games against OKC where the commentators were like, "We've never seen defense like this." They were just locking fools down, and of course they won the series. And then obviously, the Celtics had too deep of a bench. But I really like this pick. I think this is the type of player, like where you had a Doug Christie, where he just got upset if somebody scored on him. You know what I mean? It's just like you own the field and that side of the ball. And I just think that because of his father, and because when you're grown around sports, because my dad officiated sports for like 40 something years, and I was around basketball all the time, obviously as a Kings ball boy too, and you could just tell that this guy is special. I really think they made a great pick, and I think it's going to
Okay.
be a great addition. So, thank
Thank
you
you.
guys
We
again.
really
I
appreciate
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you
Thank
guys.
you, Jason. We
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks,
You
Jason.
do the same.
There's something to be said about that, Napes. It is a special type of player that can get going defensively rather than offensively. I think that speaks a lot about players, but time will tell indeed.
Amen.
So we bring on Dirk. What's going on tonight, Dirk?
Hey, Dirk.
Hey guys.
Nice
Hi there.
background.
So that guy's a dog. I mean, the guy we got, he's good. He's a great player. I mean, you have to think that some guards on the move. I think Davion, we've seen the last of him. There has to be a trade. Clearly, this feels like the season that won't end. I'm ready to just put a stamp on it and look forward to next year. Like, I guess at the end of Summer League, but who knows when these trades are going to happen that need to happen. We clearly have one too many guards, but this guy looks like a baller. I mean, I can't be mad at the pick. It's just, I feel like the trade price for Kuzma probably went up a little bit, and I don't know that it's the wrong strategy either. That's the frustrating part. Does it make sense not to overpay, to stick to your guns and not overpay for guys? Like, what are the long-term ramifications of those decisions? Maybe you don't feel like this team is a championship contender, so even with these guys, does that put you in that range? I don't know. It's there. People get paid a lot of money to figure that out, but I missed your thoughts on the pick, so I'll rewind it a bit.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you, or your evening. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Dirk. Good call by Dirk indeed. And from Dirk, we go to the NBA guru, Zach.
How you guys doing?
What's up, Zach?
Yeah, I was pretty excited about picking Devin Carter. I really liked him. I wanted him, but I didn't think he'd actually fall to us. I was pretty surprised that he dropped a little bit. The guy just works out everyone. He's a hustler. His vert's insane. He's athletic. People compare him to like Derek White. I kind of like that comp. So I think it's pretty good. And right when he started being available, it's right down Monty's lane of like looking at his metrics, where the steal rate, the shooting percentages, the plus minus stuff, all that stuff. Like once he was available at 13, you knew he was going to pick him. We'll see how he pans out, but I think it was a good pick. And it does mean, I think, Davion and Kevin to be on the trading block big time. I mean, hopefully we can get one of those wings that everyone's talking about, the Kuzmas and the Jeremy Grants maybe. But, man, I feel like Monty would have done something like that by now. I feel like we might just get someone like a Rui Hachimura or something for like Kevin Huerter or something, just a wing that we haven't really heard about, and someone that's kind of like a lower tier guy.
Grant, Zach, at what point do you have to go back to the drawing board? It's been reported for now a year the Kings have been chasing Kuzma, if not longer. Brandon Ingram's a little bit of a fresher name, Cam Johnson fresher, but at what point does that phone line dry up where you move on from a player?
It's a great question.
That is a good question. Because they've been talking about Kuzma for 4 years now, since like 2020.
Been a while.
We almost got him once, but yeah, it's been a while. I mean, at least this is a different team. You know, before it was the Lakers, now it's Washington. I think it's one of those things where they say, hey, like we're interested, and then they say they're not interested. They hang up, and then they just say, hey, call us when you want to trade Kuzma or something, whenever you feel like it. And they just have it in the backside. I mean, that's what I'm assuming.
Well, you know, he's not on the Kings. He's probably not going to be on the Kings. So, you know, I think we all, and I think we need to go back 24 hours ago. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think the people that follow this team closely, we all agreed that the Kings this offseason, Monk aside, need to do a lot more than just rely on a draft pick. That if they were going to move up the ladder in the West, that they were going to have to make moves this offseason other than the draft. So now that the draft we still have a pick in the second round, but yeah. the reality is, okay, step one is done with Monk. Your draft pick is solidified. Now the real important time of this offseason begins right now.
100% agree. It's Monty's got to make some more moves. We have like 8 guards now, so some of them got to be being dealt pretty soon. We'll see who they're for. I mean, like, man, it's just the same stuff. But yeah, we need a wing now. But at least with this Devin Carter pick, you know, it gives us some freedom to be more comfortable, I guess, trading Herder, the Duarte, the Davion, and I mean having Fox, Monk, Ellis, and Carter as your 4 guards. I mean, that's a really good athletic backcourt, a very good defensive backcourt, aside from Monk. But I mean, man, it's really nice. Also, Devin Carter averaging he was averaging like 9 rebounds a game in college, and it was just I think he's going to contribute pretty well, and we'll see how he does at Summer League. I'm pretty excited for the Kings California Classic.
Yeah, it should be good. Thanks for the call tonight, Zach. Really appreciate it, bud.
Take care, guys.
All right.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious right now. There's no room on this roster for Chris Duarte. There's no way he's going to be able to get on the floor. Okay, so that's one guy. Kevin Herter, I think, will be traded. So that's 2. Okay, so and I think the third that could be thrown in. Thrown in's not the right term because that seems like it's a garbage, and he's better than that. But I think Davion Mitchell could be on the move now because I don't know if you can have both Devin Carter and Davion Mitchell. I don't want to say they're mirror images of one another, but they're kind of similar.
Very similar. Yes.
You know, so I don't think that drafting Carter bodes well for Mitchell being on this team long term.
Yeah, and maybe that works out for the Kings in this sense, Grant. There's some value to Davion, especially with the way he finished the season and also just the upside, his defensive dog that he has in him. Some teams need that. So, you know, it's going to be up to Mike Brown. I think we're starting to get a little bit more of a direction, though. It feels like this team is leaning a little bit more into the defense rather than the offense because they had Dalton Knecht right there for them. That's an offensive pick to me, not so much a defensive pick, and they go Devin Carter. And I don't have a problem with that, Grant. I think the defense is where it's going to be if the Kings are to make something with this team.
I'm with you.
Awesome.
I mean, we need to go in a different direction. I mean, it's pretty simple. You need to go in a different direction, plain and simple. You need to go in a different direction. And I think that when you look at the lack of success that the Kings had a season ago, they've got to change their identity. We keep talking about identity, right, Ryno?
Yep. 100% all the time. What is it besides 3-point shooting and inconsistent?
Well, here we go, folks. The draft, I don't get caught up on the second round pick. I know a lot of fans do. To me, it's like the second round pick is not going to be on the roster this year, so I don't get too caught up on that. Now the big starting June 30th and moving forward for the next couple of weeks is going to be huge, huge for the Sacramento Kings.
Yep, time to start building some chemistry. I think you make a very good point about Devin Carter and just kind of the pedigree, not just the years, but being around his dad, who is an NBA player. You know, sometimes when you're an NBA kid, you're playing with NBA players as a kid in the summers. So I hope he can transition well into Sacramento in this team. And Monty McNair has his work cut out for him because free agency, not much to work with if you're the Sacramento Kings.
All right, I want to tell you about Sunrise Landing in Calusa, one of the best communities you'll find in Calusa from Blazona Development. And you can get all the information by going to CalusaSunrise.com. 6 models to choose from, no Mellorews, no homeowners, adjacent to the Calusa Golf and Country Club. Great access to I-5, Highway 20, Highway 45. Sunrise Landing in Calusa. Just go to CalusaSunrise.com. That's CalusaSunrise.com. And you will be able to check out everything at Sunrise Landing. Well, the Kings have used their pick on Devin Carter, the 6'2" guard out of Providence. He is a defensive dog. He is tenacious on that side of the floor. And that's the direction that Monty McNair and the Kings went with round 1.
Yep, some of the best measurables at the combine, which is good. The vert, somebody brought up 40 inches, fits in athletically. Get him to Sacramento. And to your point really quick before we wrap, the second round pick, the Kings' hand might be forced because that backup center position is going to be an issue. They've got to target a center in the second round.
Yeah, I'm not expecting the second round pick to be on the roster. I'm just not. Right now, I don't see it happening. But I mean, even if you draft a big in the second round, I'd be shocked if that player plays this year. I just don't see it.
Yeah, we'll see. Player development. That's what Sacramento is going to have to hang their hat on.
And that's fine. That's what the vast majority of second round picks end up being. And that's there's nothing wrong with that.
Keon Ellis undrafted, and look at what he did last year. So it can happen. This team is doing good things. Their G League team is working very well with the main roster.
All right, let's back up for a minute. And we've talked a lot about the Kings. Let's not talk about the Kings for a few minutes. Of all the picks that occurred to this point in the draft, did one of them really raise your eyebrows? You're like, oh, wow, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, Ron Holland going 5. That to me changed the draft. I don't think anybody saw him going that high at 5. Not a terrible pick. The Kings certainly liked him. But after that, and then when we talked about the UConn guys coming off the board, it just opened wide up, Grant. It became more about fit and, upside rather than best available.
And the top of the draft, 1, 2, 3. I don't think there were any surprises there,
right? No surprises. No. Nope.
Right. So, we'll see. France looking good in the NBA draft.
They sure are. You know who is also a winner here is OKC getting Nikola Topic. That to me, waiting on him for a year. Grant, they have the picks and they have the talent to do it, and they allowed Holmgren to redshirt a year, and look at how they worked out. Watch for that. That could be a blind steal from this one as well.
Well, again, folks, you'll get a peek of Carter in Summer League, and Summer League is what it is. It's Summer League, so don't overreact. But you kind of get a feel. When you watch a player in Summer League, I've always said this. If you're going to be good in the NBA, you better look good in Summer League. If you are a hot shot coming out of college and you don't look good in Summer League, that's a major red flag. Major red flag.
Why do you think some of the top draft picks, we see it all the time, struggle in Summer League?
I don't have an answer for that, but if you're going to be a good NBA player, you should not be struggling in Summer League because you're going against basically non-NBA talent.
For the most part, guys that are a lot of unsigned or free agents that were not drafted. Yeah, and the Kings, hey, a couple of summers ago, you remember the guy that said 40 wins at Summer League? Maybe somebody will yell out 50 wins.
You know it's going to happen, right?
Of course it will.
It always happens.
Always.
I
Always.
mean, we know it's going to happen.
We had this conversation. That was great a couple of years ago on Listen App. No way the Kings win 40 games, and sure enough, they do. But that was the Keegan Murray summer, and hopefully Devin Carter can have a similar impact on this team. But the Kings are going to have to fill out even that secondary roster. Jalen Slauson, Jordan Ford, some of those guys are still unsigned. So we'll see what the Kings will do there in advance, and naming a coach for the Summer League as well. That's not been done yet.
Well, it's always fun to go back and look at a draft a couple of years later and analyze it. And we'll be doing the same thing. There are players that just went ahead of the Kings. They're going to be bust. And there are players that were taken behind the Kings at 13, which will end up being really good NBA players.
Yep.
It happens every draft. And it's the question is, listen, the Kings took Tyrese Halliburton at what, number 12?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think Tyrese Halliburton would go if that draft were held all over again?
Top 3, easy.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yep.
So you always have to wait a couple of years and see how the draft goes. And I talk about it every year. There's such a rush to judgment on draft night, which I've never really understood. I just don't understand that. I've never understood it. Unless we're talking about LeBron James or Tim Duncan or someone of that magnitude, you just don't know.
You don't know. And I think it's an impatience, right? That's what happens when you try to extend a season for an entire calendar year, right? It's year-round basketball, year-round NFL. I think that's why, expectations, a lot more talking about these guys and less playing makes it for the fans a little bit less tolerable.
Again, the Kings draft a player that you're going to know when he's on the court. And when you have the ball and you're on the other team, you're going to know you're being guarded.
No doubt. And the Kings really didn't have that guy per se with this type of size. Keon Ellis, a little bit skinnier, not as built as Devin Carter.
All right. So you've got a show tomorrow at 2:00.
We will be here rocking and rolling, talking about Devin Carter and getting ready for round 2.
Yeah, we'll be on at 8:00 right here on If You Don't Like That. We certainly enjoy all of your phone calls, all of your feedback. And tomorrow at this time, the draft will be in the books, and we look ahead to June 30th and free agency. But I guess so you're surprised what Portland did with Malcolm Brogdon in Washington, right? That kind of was like, you were like a wow on that?
No, not super surprised by that. I thought the timing was a little different. I actually, 30 minutes before it happened, we were talking about a possible Jeremy Grant trade and going down the Portland payroll. And I said, Brogdon likely will not be on this team come opening day. 30 minutes later, he's traded.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what happens with the rest of the Brooklyn Nets roster now.
Yeah. How about Jordy Fernandez walking into a rebuild? Probably knew about it. Yeah,
I think Jordy knew it, and I think that they weren't going to hire Jordy and then get rid of. I think he understood what he was walking into, and you know what? It's really a great situation for Jordy as long as they're all on the same page, because now he can really build the exact type of team that he wants.
Sure, but does it really take any pressure off? We've seen coaches that go into rebuilds and get fired after 1 year.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can look at the Nets roster as it looks currently and think that there's a coach on the planet that could come in and win games there.
Sure. Very, very good point. Very good point.
But that doesn't make it any easier for Jordy. Losing sucks. But if you look at the Nets draft capital, and again, I say if they're able to draft well, they're going to be really good in a couple of years. But no matter what they do, they're always going to play second fiddle to the Knicks. I love what the Knicks did because they have a team that's ready to go right now.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, here's our opportunity. Let's not waste it.
Nailed it. What is the hype level going to be going into this season in New York?
Through the roof. You're not going to be able to get tickets to go to a Knicks game.
They've made the right moves. James Dolan is ready to win, regardless of what you think of him. I doubt they bring back Hartenstein, though. It'll be interesting to see what happens there once he becomes a free agent.
All right, I want to get to this. Drew, you said, what is it about this show that Grant and Ryno let Jay and Zach go on and not let others talk. That's totally incorrect. We let everyone talk. And the reality is that Jay and Zach are really good. Baki is really good. And the better you are, the longer you'll stay on. But to say that we don't let others talk, that's just flat out wrong. I mean, we let everyone talk.
Everyone. We don't have
on.
a screener. Come on, Drew.
I mean,
Get
stop it, would you please? So
Get out of here.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know,
You got
but
your reaction.
We also, you know, if the caller is intriguing and knowledgeable to a point where I'm kind of learning something by having them on, like Jay, like Zach, I like to hear their point of view.
Dirk.
Like Baki, we don't always agree, but we let people talk unless it's
All the time.
profanity or they're being degrading, which I don't think we've even had a call that has fit that narrative. We let people talk. Why would you say that? That's just wrong.
Yeah. Hey, give us a call, Drew. Give it a try. See how much time you get. We'll give you all the layout in the world as long as we're having a great conversation.
Yeah. So, listen, we enjoy doing this show. We do this show for you. We don't do it for ourselves. I mean, the reality is that we do the show because we enjoy talking about these things and we love the interaction with you. And I will be doing the show tomorrow and I'm looking forward to it already, even though for me personally, it's 24 hours away. I enjoy doing these shows. I enjoy talking with everyone. But, you know, when you make a comment like that, I don't quite understand that. I really don't.
Yep. A little bit confusing. Yeah. New to the channel, probably, Drew, but that's okay. Come back tomorrow. Give it another try.
Yeah, absolutely. You can come back tomorrow at 2:00 with Ryno on the King's Court, or you can come back with us at 8:00. How's that for you?
Perfect,
Yeah.
Drew.
Absolutely. By the way, if you are kind of a younger generation and a newer Kings fan, I think you might really enjoy my podcast that dropped yesterday. You can check it out on your favorite podcast platform, or if you don't like that. Ryno, I went through the Kings draft from 1985 to current, and I listed all the bad picks they made. And boy, you could fill a book up with that.
Yeah, a little bit longer than you expected. It was a great podcast. I was telling you off the air, go check it out. Even if you're an established Kings fan, it'll refresh your memory. It's a really good trip down memory lane, even though they're not all great memories per se.
You know, I'm probably the only one in America that has not been following Bronny James. Where is he? What do you think is going to happen with him?
I think he's probably going to go to the Lakers or to Phoenix. That would be my guess. They've got him pegged at right around 55. He's only worked out
right at the end of the draft.
Right at the end of the draft. Yeah. Where really, he should not be drafted. I think anybody that's saying he should be drafted in the second round is doing so because they want to be on LeBron's good side. Kendrick Perkins did the opposite and got unfollowed. But you can't deny Grant his story coming back from cardiac arrest, being able to play basketball at this high level. That's an accomplishment all on its own.
Drew says we need new callers. Drew, call the show. You'd be a new caller. Call the show. Ryan, put the link up there for Drew. Would you please? Go ahead, Drew. You know, you talk a lot, Drew, and we love people that talk because we talk and we need others that talk. You want new callers? Call. Why don't you show everyone how easy it is to do it?
Yeah. Drew, hey, come on at 2:00. We get a wide variety of callers. Yeah. You want to get your feet wet? Come on there. You will see a different variety than you see on the 8:00 show sometimes.
And Drew, unless you're an idiot, unless you're profane, unless you're condescending, we're not going to make fun of you. We're going to let you talk, and you don't have to be nervous. Go ahead. It's so easy to do.
Let her rip.
Yeah. And if you don't want to come on this show, because I'm going to intimidate you, come on with Ryno at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I'm not so scary. There's no Ryno rants usually, Drew.
Unbelievable. All right, before we wrap up this show, we didn't get to this yesterday, but I think it's appropriate today. There's a lot of talk about J.J. Redick's press conference, and personally, I feel that the way he answered some of those questions is completely out of line, and I believe that Adam Silver and the league office was rolling their eyes. There's no reason to be throwing F-bombs out as the new head coach of the LA Lakers. There are certain positions where you have to have some decorum about you, and that was completely out of line. The F word doesn't bother me. A lot of people call me Grant F. and Napier. I'm okay with that. Okay. But
Never heard that.
in that particular setting, it's out of line and it's uncalled for, in my opinion.
Yeah, it felt a little forced, Grant. I don't know if it's to shock the system, podcaster coming to become an NBA coach, but it felt other parts of it disingenuous, specifically the LeBron James conversations that did or did not happen prior to JJ being offered the job. To me, Grant, that's something you lean into. You want to bring new viewers to the NBA?
Yeah.
There's a storyline for you. You got a guy backed by LeBron, but instead, you expect us to believe you guys never talked about the Lakers job? Stop. That makes people turn the TV off. Awful.
I thought it was out of line, especially for someone like JJ Redick, who's never coached before. And I'm just wondering, gee, is this what press conferences are going to be like now in LA for this season? It's just inappropriate.
Did you hear a member of the media scuff and scoff at it? When JJ, to get a member of the tenured media to do that at a coaching introductory press conference, that tells you something. So you weren't the only one rubbed the wrong way.
And here's something else. You're now in Los Angeles. You're the coach of the Lakers. It is advantageous for you to have as many members of the media on your side as you can get. And you just turned off some people, right or wrong. And that's just not a smart move on your part. Because if you win, it really won't matter what you say. Okay, because that's all the fans are going to care about. But if you don't go to LA and if you don't win, if you lose, you better be real careful about what you say.
You got to find that balance between coach talk and bullshit, in my opinion. And I felt it was a little bit off-kiltered for him, but it's a great point. It's not just the LA media, Grant, it's the national media. You're the Lakers. You got LeBron. You got Anthony Davis.
Drew says, my kids are using the F word now because of JJ. Well, I don't know what to say about that other than I thought it was out of line. I thought it was inappropriate. And I bet you he had a talking to after the press conference. I just bet you that Pelinka and Jeannie Buss said, hey, JJ, you know what, please, that's going a little overboard with that. Yeah,
I guess that's where that veteran staff comes in, that veteran leadership that he is going to build around him.
I think his staff is the most important part of his job. I really do.
Does it hurt a member, a respected veteran coach, or even a respected past head coach? Does it hurt them to go on a staff led by JJ Redick?
No. You know why? Because they're probably thinking they're 18 inches away from being the head coach of the Lakers.
Yeah, outshine.
Okay,
Yes.
Understand
completely.
Right.
LeBron is JJ is the highest paid assistant coach in the NBA. To me, LeBron James is the coach of that team.
But it's interesting. I mean, I look at assistant coaches, and when you're the lead assistant, you're one step closer to becoming the head coach.
Very true. Very true. Jerry and I had a really good conversation about that Tuesday, why some of these guys that are great assistants just aren't getting the opportunities. They're being passed up for younger talent or people that are getting their third, fourth try as a head coach. And it's a very interesting conversation to me, Napes.
It is very interesting. I mean, the society's about trends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even on the court, you and Jerry have been talking a lot about on your show, is the NBA now trending back to more bigs, right?
Yes.
After trending away from bigs to guards, and swingmen, are we now starting to trend as the pendulum starting to go back the other way, right? Society's about trends.
Very true. Very true indeed. And you saw the big men go early tonight. Portland, How about Portland were big winners. And, I'm not trying to be a homer here, but that was the guy that they wanted. Donovan Clingan.
Yes.
They were trying to move up to get him. They had targeted him well before this draft, and it landed in their lap. So good for them, even though they are a rival.
All right. We appreciate everyone joining us. Don't forget Ryno tomorrow on the King's Court at 2:00 right here. And then we'll be back at 8:00. Have a good Wednesday evening or wherever you are around the globe. I've looked on our chat line. We've got some folks in other parts of the world. We got Baki over in Belgrade. I saw we have someone from Germany. We always are represented in the Philippines and other parts of the globe. So thank you very much. Ryno, have a good show tomorrow at 2:00, buddy.
Appreciate it, Napes. Go check out Grant's podcast. You will very much enjoy it.
Take care, everyone.